The way of water. The way of water. So I watched the movie, finally, Avatar 2. And I want to break it down from a Flowstate perspective, because there's a lot of interesting spirituality in the movie that I think is very overlooked. Okay. Now, in one scene in particular, where I believe it's Lowak, considering Ma Jake, or Ma Jake, right? Jake Sully in the movie, who's guiding him through this breath work. And shout out to Nick, who pointed this out to me. So I'm a flow state specialist, so I'm going to be breaking down Avatar 2 and its understanding from a flow state lens. So in that particular scene, you'll notice him telling him to deep breathe, right? Breathe from the bottom of his belly. And there is a very important stanza which is shared around the nature of water, which is actually a symbol of life. If you're familiar with the way of the water, is also Bruce Lee's path. And his book by his daughter, Shannon Lee, is also called Be Like Water. Okay, so it's very, very important as a theme throughout this movie. So the way of the water has no beginning or end. Our breath burns in the shadows of the deep. Listen to these words, okay? And also gotta understand that there's gonna be some spoilers, okay? So if you haven't watched the movie, go watch the movie before you watch this breakdown. Having said that, our breath burns in the shadows of the deep. The sea gives and takes. Water connects all things. Life to death, darkness to light. Okay? Start to notice this. They refer to water as a fortress throughout the movie. And there is a particular reef clan, a whole water nation, water tribe, that they meet and communicate with and seek solace for within the water, because they have no safe space in the land. So start to understand the benefit of the rejuvenating qualities of water and how it's depicted through this movie. So the sea gives and it takes. Water connects all things, life to death, darkness to light. Okay, this is our path of the flow state water path as well, because we work with both the shadow work and the light work. We understand that we are flickering beings, life and death and life, and memento mori, and remembering that we all begin with the water and end with the water. Specifically in Hinduism, in my culture, they actually float the dead bodies in the water after they're cremated or burned. Okay, so our breath burns in the shadows of the deep has a very deep significance to that tradition. Also speaking particularly in terms of the Hindu connection in the movie. I mean, the word avatar or avatar itself means descent, or a material appearance or incarnation of the divine, or a god or a deity in some form. And of course, it's very interesting how, first of all, the makara is there. I know that they're riding around in these like makaras that can fly or have become dragons, which is very, very interesting, because in the Vedas, as some of you know, I've kind of labeled myself as Master Makara, because it's the gatekeeper. It's the one who contains all the secret wisdom and the teachings, and keeps it alive and protects. Oftentimes protects Varuna, the god of the sea or ocean. That is his trusty steed or vehicle. for how he travels, as well as Mama Ganga and Samudra and a few of the other water deities in Hinduism. So the word avatar means descent or material appearance. Now these whales called tulung, they have this kind of quality of this elixir of life, which interestingly enough they call amrita. Okay, amrita, if you're familiar with Sanskrit, it means not death or deathless. Okay, which basically translates to immortality. And if you remember in the movie, they refer to it as a substance of some sort. Of course, in the whole Hindu practices, I mean, it's the equivalent of what you'd say ambrosia in Greek myth, right? The nectar of immortality. And there's a story of the churning of the milk of the sea, which is associated with this, the myth. So, and it's also, in the Soma, and in Soma is also introduced as a substance in Brave New World. So they're taking a lot from these, these movies are taking quite a lot from Sanskrit terms and ideologies and different, things. So it stops aging, right? This $80 million substance from one tulung, one giant ass whale, right? So, well, whale creature. I wouldn't really call it a whale. It's definitely bigger than a whale. But what's interesting is also the character Kiri. All right, it's played by Sigourney Weaver, and her character is very interesting because it's almost she's virgin born, right? Like Mother Mary. So there's this religious kind of connotation. And what's very interesting is she experiences this ecstatic rapture as she kind of plugs herself into the underwater. And it's very strange because she has all these mystical powers in a sense. She's more spiritual and dreamier than the other ones. She seems to blend the world of the human and the world of the Navi very well. Okay, of course she has a bit of a clumsiness and awkward teen quality to her, but I think she's a very, very important character. Once she gets that seizure, as she plugs in, she sees a picture of her so-called mom who adopted her, right, which is actually Sigourney Weaver in the movie. So she's kind of playing a teenage version of herself, I guess, in the movie itself, which is kind of cool. And as soon as she talks to her mother, it's sort of, the system short circuits her in a sense, right? Because it's too overwhelming and it's too powerful. What's interesting though is this Amrita thing, going back to that, this is what the Asuras, or the demon or the demonic forces in Hindu myth, or evil forces, more so darkness, and the Devas, the gods, or the light forces, were fighting for. Okay, and Amata Santam, in Buddhism, also is the deathless dimension of mind, okay, associated with Amrita. So you got to understand, that's the state after Nirvana. So, Awa, which is very interesting, because if you look at Awa backwards, right, it's oh yeah, okay, which is I don't think anybody else has pointed this out before this video. So if you find it fascinating to me, comment oh yeah below in this video to make sure that you've actually been paying attention, and yeah, that'd be cool to know. So Awa is almost like Mother Gaia, right? The connection of this whole planet of Pandora, which I'm going to get to why it's called Pandora. So this scene of breathing from the belly, right? This breathing technique, this breathwork technique is very, very key in understanding flow state, because they're using heart rate variability to try and control one's level of consciousness, or this level of fear or panic, or is being guided through a meditation, through a point of this character helping this other character from what they've learned throughout being in the water and the way of the water. Okay, so what other mainstream movie does this? I don't think they pull it off that well, but here it seemed like it was very intelligently done. So shout out to James Cameron for that. I mean, we do get some Titanic themes right at the end of the movie as well. So Tulung are these spiritual beings who are said to be more, their emotional centers of their brain are more activated and they're more intelligent. And it's very interesting because they've taken ahimsa, or the sense of a non-violence vow, right, in a sense. So that's very interesting how there's a lot of spiritual connotations with these whales, or dolphin-like creatures, right? Which dolphins and whales are also associated with a lot of starseed frequencies, ancient civilizations like Atlantis, Lemuria, Vega, Sirius, Pleiades, and many, many more of these different places, I guess you would call them, okay? Also, Shambhala, I'm sure, has elements of this. So, this character, who is this only human character on this Navi, Pandora, right, is Spider. Now, it's very interesting because Spider related to spidey senses in the flow state, but also spiders have 8 limbs, which is the 8 limbs of yoga. Spiders are also associated with time and time distortion. Flow state is so associated with timelessness because it's pure presence. So Spider's character combines this kind of savage with the civilized. And it's a very, very spiritual characterization of this, of what this means, right? Because spiders are associated when the timeline is speeding up usually, and Spider in the movie shows up to edit a lot of the timelines, right? He actually saves his fake father in the movie, right? So clearly there's a certain kind of a bond that is still there for him, because the dad wanted to save him and he wanted to save the dad as a kind of symbolism, right? A representation of what's really going on. Now, this character Ronal was also interesting. She was the pregnant woman of the Reef Clan, and she was like the shaman keeper of wisdom. So I found that very fascinating, because there's a lot of reference to shamanism in this movie that a lot of people are maybe missing out on, and also the Maori tribal designs from like different Polynesian cultures being in the actual creatures underwater, but also in some of the bioluminescent tattoos of the Reef Clan, right? So it's interesting because Pandora is this bioluminescent planet which encapsulates and embodies the divine feminine, I feel like it's Mother Gaia in a different form. So essentially, Pandora, if you know anything about the Greek myth, Pandora is the first woman, okay, according to Greek myth. So she's basically like Eve in a sense. So that is Mother Gaia. And if you know anything about the Greek myth, you'll know that all the evils of the world escaped from Pandora's jar when she opened the box, or the jar, Pandora's box, right? But the thing is that hopelessness, the quality of hopelessness as an evil, never escaped from the jar. She trapped it back. So this is very symbolic of the fact that hope can conquer all evils, okay? And I don't think a lot of people are noticing this quality of the Pandora myth and the Pandora planet, because ultimately it is the hope. It is the hope that they will be rescued, that they will be saved, and the faith that they had, and the guidance of the Water Tribe, putting full trust into a completely different way of life, of people, still protecting, you know, Mama Gaia, or Awa in the sense, or oh yeah. So understanding this, we understand the depth of this movie. Not only that, the flow state elements of it, which is the guidance through the breath, The understanding of the water, that it has no beginning, it has no end, it is infinite, it is formless, it is the thing that we all go back to and we come from. And it's a symbol of life, it's a symbol of rejuvenation, purification, but also hope. And if you can hold on to your hope, you understand. A lot of hopelessness or helplessness is learned, okay? Is what Martin Seligman calls it. Learned helplessness, okay? So once you can understand that hope conquers all evils, you can now have this added intelligence or vivacity or wisdom in handling what you felt after this movie. I honestly thought it was hella long. 3 hours is even longer than a friggin' Bollywood movie. So there's a lot of, as my grandmother would call it, rest her soul, she called it guli shuto. So basically like a ball of yarn, like, just like keeping the story going and going and going without any actual formulation of the plot, moving forward. But it was a very interesting and entertaining movie, that I'll give you that for sure. And I love to see these kind of mythical sea monster creatures. I love that. I mean, that speaks to my soul quite a lot. So I love the underwater scenes and so forth. And yeah, man, I don't know what else to really say about the movie other than the fact that I found it very fascinating, and I found it very eye-opening, actually, in terms of what is possible in a decade of movie making. Because this movie took a long time. I thought there were a lot of Hollywood-type explosions that they could have, cut down on some of the explosions. I mean, to see that world being destroyed, I don't think it's fun for anybody. However, of course, there is the cinematic CGI quality of this amazing world that has been invented and created, almost like a Star Wars type quality, right, of this movie. So, yeah, man, I found it fascinating. May the flow be with you. Find the way of the water for you individually. If you need help tapping into the zone, you know where to find me. Let's get it. We're doing free channeling sessions. So yesterday we actually channeled Chief Deno, who, in accordance to this, I don't know if you guys can see this, but turn my phone back here, but there's a tiger on my back, okay? In great reverence to Chief Deno, who is an anamorph, I'm saying African, but Native American spirit. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Join the Facebook group if you can. I'm gonna post some content there. Have an incredible day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary. Let's get it. Primal Sutra, Upward Spiral Gang. Let's go.